Hello everybody, welcome back to Calgary Barbell. Now a little while ago we started diving into a series or a number of videos on equipped lifting, and today we're going to continue that by talking about programming and programming considerations for equipped powerlifting. The four big things we're going to talk about today are going to be the frequency, the intensity, number of reps per set, and then overall volume per week. And hopefully by sort of walking through some of these things, the way that I've coached others, the way that I've trained in the past, we can give you guys some takeaways that you can take to create and to train in your own microcycle and to build your own programming. So the first one, like I said, is going to be frequency, and this refers to how often you're going to be getting into your equipment. Your biggest limitation in terms of increasing that frequency is going to be what your skin can handle, how often your skin can hold up to being in the equipment and lifting in the equipment. Now, I would generally say the upper end of that is going to be 1 time per week in each piece of equipment. However, there may be a possibility of getting into your shirt more than 1 time per week if you're doing some board work or some limited range of motion stuff where you're going to be sort of biting a little bit less in terms of, like I said, the skin, and potentially some partial range of motion stuff in your other equipment as well. But just bear that in mind. Full range of motion, I would say probably 1 time a week maximum, and with a minimum of once every 3 weeks. I've had some success waving through and doing week 1 raw, week 2 in wraps, and week 3 in full equipment. And that's been somewhat successful with lifters in the past. But the big thing to remember here with frequency is that if we can practice more often, it's probably going to be beneficial. Obviously, strength is a skill, and there is a very different skills component to equipped lifting that we need to take into consideration. So especially for somebody who's sort of just learning how to do a lot of this stuff, it could be very beneficial to get into the equipment a little bit more frequently. So general recommendation here is going to be 1 time per week in each piece of equipment. Now, when we talk about intensity, we're talking about the load or the weight on the bar. Obviously, this is very important when it comes to equipped lifting because without enough load, you're not going to go anywhere in your equipment, at least if it's any kind of tight. But if you have too much load, conversely, you can end up just frying yourself or ending up not getting a good training stimulus, not being able to progress, or not being able to sort of continue adding weight, leaving no room for progress. So when we talk about intensity, we have obviously 2 different ways of prescribing it. We have percentage-based or RPE-based. Now, the RPE system is very useful here. Obviously, for a newer lifter, you're probably going to need to use some RPE stuff to try to figure out and estimate, create an estimated 1 rep max for each of your equipped lifts. Now, if you want to use percentages, if that's more your style, I would say anywhere between about 80 and 92%. With 80%, you should be able to get most of a range of motion in your equipment. Again, the tighter it is, the smaller that window gets and the less room you have to play around with different intensities. If you're in very, very tight stuff, you're probably not watching this video. You're probably a very advanced lifter that's either comfortable programming for themselves or a coach. But generally speaking, so in my equipment, I can get to pretty close to competition depth and pretty close to a touch in my shirt, like maybe a 1 board or so, with about 85%. So most of my singles I'm working with 90, 92%. So a single at a 7, 8, or a 9. And doubles and triples obviously work really well in that sort of intensity range as well. So general rule of thumb here, intensity wise, load on the bar, we're talking anything 7 to 9 RPE, and usually about 80 to 92%. You can obviously go heavier in your training, but I would say for the most part, we want to try to keep that weight in the sweet spot where we're working maybe around an opener or a little bit lighter for good training effect, and also to make sure we have the ability to get enough volume in that we're driving some sort of change and progress in your lifting. So the next concept I want to run through with everybody is going to be how many reps should we be doing per set in equipment. Now, obviously, when we talk about reps per set, the first thing that's going to come to everyone's mind is going to be singles. And you're right, that's an excellent tool in terms of equipped lifting. Doing singles is going to allow us to use a heavy enough load that we elicit a training response. It's generally going to allow us to use enough weight that we're able to hit competition standards. And what I mean by that is depth in the squat suit and touching your chest on the bench press. And it's going to teach us the skill of doing these things to that standard. Now, I also want to make a case for using higher reps. Now, there's two main advantages for using, I would say, up to a set of 5. I would hesitate to do more than a set of 5, but hey, to each his or her own. And I think that somebody out there is going to get some benefit from doing a set of 10 in their squat suit and wraps. It's just not me. But anyways, I think there are two main benefits. Number one, it teaches you a bit different sort of skills acquisition. So what it's going to do is by doing a set of 4 or 5 in full equipment is going to teach you to trust your suit a little bit more. It's going to teach you to speed up your descent a little bit more, because I guarantee by the end of a set of 5 in a squat suit and wraps, you're going to want that to be over as soon as possible. But you will get into a good groove with it. You will learn how to use the equipment and get more experience faster, because you are literally just doing more reps. You're practicing more reps. Now, the other big thing that I see as a benefit from doing higher reps in the equipment is going to be a very specific strength and hypertrophy stimulus, because we're doing more than singles there. We're accumulating a little bit of volume. We're accumulating some specific fatigue. Obviously, when we're in the equipment, the strength curve changes, the strength demands change, and if we can hypertrophy and build strength specific to those demands, that's going to be useful long-term in equipped powerlifting. Now, obviously, we've talked about this before, but if you're in really tight equipment, it changes the rules. It changes the way things work. You're probably going to lean more towards singles, maybe a double, but if you're in very, very tight equipment, you're not going to get any kind of depth or any type of range of motion in a bench shirt with a set of 5, and the loads that are going to be light enough to do a set of 5. So you have to take that into consideration, but I definitely think that reps above 2 and 3, all the way up to 5, maybe even 6, can be valuable in equipment. And the last thing that we're going to talk about today is going to be the overall level of volume throughout your training week. So when we're talking about the total number of reps that you're going to do in your equipment per week, per lift, there are some general guidelines, and I'll throw some out there, but they are just that, general guidelines. Volume is a very, very individual thing, and I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to find some of the volume landmarks when it comes to your equipped training, or any training really. To start off with, general recommendations, general guidelines. I've had a fair bit of success with reps anywhere between I would say 8 and 25 reps per lift in the equipment per week. Now, this could be broken up as a few top singles or a top single and then some kind of drop volume. Again, if you are running into issues with your skin, which is something that I ran into one time, I believe the prescription was a top single at an 8, and then 4 triples at 80% in my squat suit, and then the following day I had a top single at 8 and 6 sets of 4 at 75 or 80%. That was really rough. That was a lot of work to get in the equipment. So when we're looking at sort of the lower end of intensity and the higher end of volume, I would almost nudge most people to use a little bit more intensity and a little less volume. Now, this in my case was extenuating circumstances. I was coming back from my injury. We didn't want to re-aggravate it. We saw intensity as sort of a driver of some of those negative side effects or negative issues with my hip injury. Since then, that's been resolved, and I'm using a bit less overall volume and a bit more intensity, and my lifting is going quite a bit better. A lot of my recent training has been 1 to 3 top singles at about an 8 RP, and then drop volume, whether that's numerous sets or a single set at a higher intensity. Hopefully that gives everybody a bit of an idea about how to structure the day and about how much work to do, or at least some ranges to work within throughout the week. So taking that into consideration when planning how much volume you're going to do is going to be a very handy thing, especially when we're looking at equipped squats, and somewhat so with the bench. The amount of time that you need between reps and between sets can be pretty significant when we're looking at wrapping the knees, getting the straps up, getting the belt done up, getting your wrist straps done, getting under the bar, making sure your spotters are set, all that kind of stuff. We're looking at potentially 10 plus minutes between sets on equipped squat, and potentially 5 to 7 minutes between sets of bench. And that's if you're not a social butterfly. If you like to socialize a lot between your sets, it's going to take even longer. So again, that's something to consider. Now, in terms of finding the volume levels that work for you, common sense would say, let's start on the low end, gradually work our way up, and kind of see where we find that sweet spot. Now, there are a few different landmarks, and I believe Mike Israetel was one of the ones, or the one, to sort of popularize this way of thinking about volume. But we have minimum effective volume, we have maximum recoverable volume, and we have maximum adaptive volume. So we start on the low end, and if you are recovering but not making progress, then we're below your minimum effective volume. Once you get up to the point where you are making some progress week to week and are recovering, then we're just below your maximum recoverable volume, but above the minimum effective volume. Now, once we go beyond that, we get above the maximum recoverable volume. We're still making progress, but we're not recovering. We're feeling very, very beat up. The next big landmark is going to be the maximum adaptive volume, where once you go beyond that, you're not making progress anymore and you're not recovering. So ask yourself 2 questions. Am I recovering and am I making progress? Now, the answers to those 2 questions can dictate where among those landmarks you are currently operating in terms of your volume. And I would say for most people, generally speaking, we want to be somewhere between minimum effective and maximum recoverable. And we can play around quite a bit in there, but holding a stimulus or volume level where we're able to make progress and able to recover is generally going to be the most ideal way to organize your weekly volume. So hopefully that all made sense. Any questions, leave them in the comments below. And everybody, that's it. So I know that this is a very big and can be a somewhat convoluted topic when we're talking about programming. There are many different ways to approach programming, specifically for equipped lifting. I know the conjugate method or West Side method is very popular and has been popular over the years, but I'm trying to give you guys sort of a glimpse into how I program, how I've been training, and hopefully set you guys up for some success in your equipped lifting, giving you a glimpse into sort of my programming and my world of programming. Anyways, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in today, for watching this video. If you have any questions, and I'm sure there will be some, please leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to respond to every one of them. And if you liked the video, leave a like. If you think that some of your friends could benefit from seeing this, go ahead and share it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. There's going to be a lot more equipped content and raw content coming up very soon. And that's about it. So thanks for tuning in. We will see you all in the next video.